What creatures brutally attack these men in the forest? Cryptids or I don't know. What could have possibly attacked them? Let me know. Let me find out. I'm watching this video live. My link is in the description. I'm live on Twitch every day. TwiiChy with 3 Ys. This is the link. The link to this video will be in the description. This is Mr.Ballen.
Today, we're going to look at 2 spooky stories about people's run-ins with terrifying creatures. But before we get into those stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you...
And I remember when Mr.Ballen, we upload 3, 4, and maybe even 5 times a week. It might have even been a day.
Please take the like button out to pet some furry, cute animals at the zoo, but instead of taking them to the zoo, take them to pet a pack of wild, hungry hyenas and stack their pockets full of hot dogs. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. And also, I am on tour right now, so be sure you...
Oh, well, he got 5 podcasts. I understand why he went down to 1 episode a week. Never mind. Forget what I was saying.
Follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is just Mr.Ballen, where you will see all the behind-the-scenes magic of us being on tour. It's really good. Again, Instagram, Mr.Ballen is my handle. Check it out. Okay, let's get into today's stories.
Damn.
Just after midnight on May 1st, 1971, a 20-year-old woman named Elizabeth Ford was sleeping on a couch in the front room of a small house near a city in Arkansas called Texarkana. Elizabeth and her husband Bobby were staying at the house with Bobby's brother,
Texarkana, Arkansas,
and his wife, who owned the house. Bobby and his brother were still both awake, and Elizabeth could hear them talking in the kitchen quietly. The house was surrounded by woods and swampland, and Elizabeth had opened up...
This is like some retro footage. This is some old footage. See, I do some videography myself. You can't see the camera, but this is very old. This is grainy resolution. I can tell this is an old camera.
Up a window above the couch, so a breeze was blowing in. Now, usually she slept really well with the sound of the woods in the background, but tonight she was tossing and turning. And this was because, as she lay there trying to sleep, she became very aware of a unique sound coming from outside that was not the sound of, the trees blowing in the wind or the insects buzzing. This was something else. It was a slow creaking sound. And at first, it kind of sounded like it could be out in the woods somewhere.
Somebody's walking up on they in the cabin? Somebody's walking up in the crib.
But eventually, Elizabeth realized this creaking sound was sort of moving back and forth, right outside on the porch, below the open window. Suddenly, Elizabeth's eyes flew open and she looked at the window because this creaking sound had...
They don't got no blinds? Oh nah, somebody's sitting up they sitting on the porch looking at me through the front window.
Just intensified and then came to a stop on the immediate other side of this window, like there was something heavy right outside. Elizabeth sat up to face the window, but she didn't see anything outside through the screen. And so right away she felt totally relieved. She didn't know what that sound was, but clearly there was nothing there.
Yeah, she ain't seen them because she ain't have no blinds. Bro was sitting there looking through he was looking through the window like these. He was like, yeah, he saw her. She was like, as soon as she started doing like this, he said, ducked off.
However, just to be certain, she decided she would go a little bit closer to the screen and actually look right up close to make sure there was nothing down below on the porch. And so Elizabeth leaned forward and pressed her face to the screen and began to look. And as she did, this dark figure down below suddenly rose up.
I told you he ducked off.
And completely blocked out the window, and Elizabeth's looking at it, having no idea what it is, and before she could do anything, this huge thing slashed at the screen.
Oh my!
And this big, reddish, furry brown paw with razor-sharp claws cut through the screen and nearly cut Elizabeth's face. Elizabeth screamed and practically fell over, and this dark creature
Bigby Wolf
outside turned and bolted and disappeared. And then a moment later, Elizabeth's husband Bobby and his brother came running into the room asking what was going on. Elizabeth was so shocked at what she had just experienced that all she could say to her husband was, "It's a bear! It's a bear!" Bobby helped Elizabeth
I'm not gonna lie, that would be like the best guess at the time, bro. Cause like, what was that? So I wake up, I'm hearing creaks and stuff. I'm hearing creaks all over the boards. I'm sleeping. I'm like, I don't see nothing. I'm as soon as I hit these, that man say, oh, and then he goes, hush, hush.
off the couch and then told her and his brother's wife to stay in the house and away from the windows. And then Bobby and his brother got shotguns and flashlights and went outside. Once outside, Bobby and his brother began scanning all around the porch area where Elizabeth had apparently seen this bear to see where it was. They pulled the flashlights out and they scanned the tree lines. They looked all over the place, all around the front of the property, but there was no sign of this animal. And so the brothers looked at each other and nodded, and then they both left the porch and went different directions, kind of looping around.
Oh nah, y'all are tripping. Y'all have I don't know, bro. Y'all don't got enough people to clear the perimeter. Y'all can't split up. You gotta go together. Maybe have 3 people. One person stand on the porch with a shotgun. Then 2 of y'all make your round.
Around the back of the house.
Y'all got enough people to be splitting up right now.
They were going to scan the entire property and meet up at the back. And when they met up at the back, they still hadn't found this bear, and so they walked away from the house towards the tree line and did another big sweep together of the entire perimeter, again looking for any sign of this animal. But there was nothing. And so after a while of circling the property, the brothers decided that, this bear must have just run off. And so Bobby and his brother returned to the porch.
Did the bear run
off?
off?
Their next move. Both Bobby and his brother were hunters, and they knew that usually the best thing to do with the bears that roamed this area was to leave them alone. I mean, these bears could grow to be 500 pounds, and if they were provoked, they could run at 35 miles an hour. And so generally, you just stayed away
500-pound bear running at me 35 miles per hour.
from these things.
That's a scary sight.
And they'd leave you alone too. However, as the brothers were sitting there talking through what had happened that night, they both said, it definitely seemed like this bear was different. I mean, apparently it was aggressive enough to come right up to the house, unprovoked, and reach in and swipe at Elizabeth, which obviously was not normal bear behavior. And so, to Bobby and his brother, this meant that they really couldn't just leave this bear alone.
Yeah, actually, I've never seen a bear get aggressive like that a day in my life. I don't even think I've seen mother bears get that aggressive.
They had to go out there and find
Especially off of nothing. Off of nothing is crazy.
And kill it to protect themselves.
She was sitting up in the house asleep. The bear coming up. Bear.
And so Bobby lit a cigarette to calm his nerves.
I don't even
and
know
the two
if it's a
brothers
bear.
came up with a plan for how they were going to go find this bear. Bobby's brother would man the front of the house, and Bobby would man the back of the house. And they would stay in their respective positions, monitoring the property until either they saw the bear and dealt with it, or until the sun came up, at which point they could go get help. And so after agreeing to this plan, Bobby took one final drag on his cigarette, chucked it to the ground, and then with his shotgun in one hand and his flashlight in the other, he stepped off the porch and walked around to the back of the house and stared off into the darkness. Bobby had only been in the back of the...
What is he doing, bro? Go inside the house and chill for the night. What are you talking about? I'm about to stand outside on patrol with a shotgun waiting for him to come back to the crib. No. Did you see? He popped up taller than the window, swiped up in the window. No, you're about to get flanked. Your bullet's gonna do five projectile damage. The bear gonna have 95 health remaining. You're gonna be cooked.
At the house for a couple of minutes, manning his post, when he began to smell this horrible smell. Now, at first he thought it was just some sort of wet, musky smell that came over from the swampland nearby, but as he continued to smell it, it got heavier and more pungent. It smelled like a wet, decaying animal. Bobby tensed up and aimed his flashlight up at the tree line and began looking back and forth, trying to figure out where this horrible smell was coming from. And as he was doing this, he suddenly heard the sound of tree branches snapping off to his left. And so he whipped his flashlight over and shined it, and he saw this big, dark figure charging across the property away from him into the forest. Bobby instinctively raised his
Hold on. It's watching him walking through the woods, and it's tactically avoiding him.
Charging across the property away from him into the forest. Bobby instinctively raised his shotgun and fired, and then after shooting, a loud yelp echoed in the air, and then Bobby just took off running in the direction he had just fired, and as he's running across the yard, he's
good hunting, Bobby.
Screaming for his brother, who had already heard the shotgun blast, so he was coming around the house, and the two men linked up, and as they're running in the direction of this bear, Bobby's telling his brother, "I think I got it, I shot the bear."
Oh no, wait. It made the squeal sound. It's gonna do another squeal sound in a second. And when it does this next one, they're gonna run up to that sound. And it's gonna be a setup. There's gonna be multiple of them there.
But they get over to where Bobby had last seen it and where he heard this yelp come from, and there was nothing. There was no bear. Still, the brothers did feel a little relieved. They figured even if they couldn't find this thing, clearly Bobby had hit it. He had heard the sound of it yelping out, and so maybe by at least wounding it, it would stay away and leave them alone. But just then, the men heard the sound of their wives screaming from inside the house.
It flew back to the house?
Men immediately ran back to the house, and as they got closer, Bobby again began to smell that horrible smell. And right as Bobby's foot hit that first porch step, his brother from behind him screamed out, "Stop!"
Oh, GG.
Stop! But it was too late. The bear was on the porch. That's why the women were screaming. They had seen it.
Oh my. Bro walked on the porch, he didn't even notice.
And Bobby's brother had seen it, but Bobby hadn't. And now he was too close to it to get away. And before Bobby could raise.
Bobby, you got a quick draw. You got. He don't got no time. He's walking the gun. He's walking holding the gun like these. He's holding it like these. He don't got no time to. It's probably not even cycled back. The pump not cycled. He walking with it down like these. After he already let off the first shot, he cycled it back again. He walking back to the house. He's like. Then they're like, Bobby, the bear's right there, Bobby. The bear's right here. Bobby's cooked.
His gun to protect himself. This thing attacked. And Bobby felt this horrible burning, tearing sensation in his arm. He fell to the ground, twisting wildly back and forth, trying to protect himself. He was pinned underneath this enormous bear, level with its chest, with its arms and legs on either side of him. And that horrible smell he was smelling was clearly coming from this animal. That's all he could smell from underneath. But just then, it was like a miracle, because to his side, Bobby could see there was an opening, and so he rolled and somehow got out from underneath this enormous creature. Bobby scrambled up to his feet, and he darted past the bear and rammed into the closed front door of the house. It popped open, he fell inside, and his wife ran forward and shut the door behind him.
There's no way that worked. What about his brother?
Leaving Bobby's brother outside on the
What about his brother?
Porch alone with the bear. But before any of them could do anything about that, they heard the sound of his brother's shotgun go.
GG. That shotgun, like I said earlier, it just did 5 damage. The bear still got 95 HP left.
Going off. Then there was a long moment of silence. Inside the house, everybody was frozen. A few seconds later, the door slowly opened.
Oh. Was I wrong? He hit a crit.
Bobby's brother walked inside. Everyone was too shocked to say anything, so for a second, they all just stared at each other. And then
Bobby's brother hit a crit.
Finally, Bobby asked him, "Is the bear dead?" And Bobby's brother, with a trembling voice, said no.
What?
and that wasn't a bear. As soon as dawn
What was it?
broke and it was not dark outside anymore, Bobby's wife drove him to the hospital where they would treat him for shock and for the wound to his shoulder. They had hoped to
I'm
find him
definitely in
somewhere
shock.
on the property, either dead or wounded, based on Bobby's brother's account of having fired at it basically point blank, but the creature was gone. They did find its tracks though, and this discovery made it clear that Bobby's brother was right, that this wasn't a bear. Because
Really?
in the dirt surrounding the house were all these bizarre footprints and handprints.
It's like this is like at least a foot long. This is like a 16 inches long. It's like 3-4 inches wide with 3 toes.
Of a creature that seemed to walk on its hind legs with 3 toes on each and had 3 long sharp claws on
Nah, it's probably like a foot long.
its hands. And as unbelievable as this all seemed to the police,
13
this actually
inches.
tracked with what Bobby's brother said he saw when he was out on the porch. He said he saw a creature with reddish brown hair all over it that stood over 7 feet tall, and after being shot, it took off running on 2 legs, and it ran fast. But the most terrifying thing about it, at least according to Bobby's brother, was actually its eyes. They were blazing red. And when the news of this attack spread to the nearest town, which was called Falk, the people there knew exactly what this
Was this the start of Bigfoot? It said Falk. I'm pretty sure Falk. I don't know.
creature
Is that
was.
where? Is that
For
where?
200 years,
that
people in that part
originated?
of Arkansas had been talking about this huge creature that was sort of like a Sasquatch that roamed the forest and the swamps.
Never
They said it was
mind.
fast and elusive, and it ate
I
livestock
don't think so.
and pets. They called it the Falk Monster, or sometimes the Boggy Creek Monster. But Bobby Ford and his family's encounter with this creature was unlike any other story that had been told about the Falk Monster. While some people claimed in the past that this creature had attacked people, nobody had ever heard of it actually coming up to somebody's house, trying to break in and terrorize a family. Bobby's ordeal would inspire the 1972 horror movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek. Over the years, police officers and some scientists have suggested that maybe what Bobby and his brother encountered that night was actually a feral pig. However,
A feral pig. They said it was running on 2 legs.
authorities have never actually been able to pinpoint
And also, what type of pig has a 12, 13 inch long foot with 3 toes on the end?
what this thing was. Nobody knows. And to this day, hikers and hunters near the swamps of southwest Arkansas and also across the border into East Texas
I don't think that
still
was no
report
feral
run-ins
pig.
with the legendary Falk Monster. Me and the whole team at Ballen Studios have created a special thank you to all you amazing fans for all your support. Now, you may have already heard about this, but if you haven't,
Oh, for real?
my very first book, Mr.Ballen Presents
Strange, Dark, and Mysterious?
The Graphic Stories, finally comes out this year on October 1st. But that's not the thank you.
Are these his own stories, or is it
The thank you is for anyone who pre-orders this book,
I saw a drawing of him.
which includes 9 feature-length, amazingly illustrated stories, you will immediately gain access to a secret 10th story that's not in this book. This secret story is called A Forest So Evil, and it's really good. So here's how you get it. After you pre-order your book, whether you've already done that or you do it now, you're going to get a into them. Really touched at all the support you've. Again, pre-order your copy today. Story called
US
A
only.
Forest So Evil. On the evening of August 1st, 2015,
Hellhound.
a 20-year-old man named Fraser Beloyi walked alone down a main road toward his village
Talking about Call of Duty, fetch me their souls.
in the South African province of Limpopo. Fraser was on his way home from work, and he was pretty desperate to get there. It was only about 7:30 p.m., and usually around this time, Fraser was used to seeing other people out and about on this road, just kind of walking around in the dusk or, chatting or doing various errands, but tonight there was nobody out there. And in fact, in recent days, this area of Limpopo had basically become a ghost town. No,
It kind of look vibey out there. I can't even lie.
in recent days,
It's all orange. I feel like I've seen an anime, like some city in an anime that was based off of this.
this area of
Maybe it was in Samurai Champloo. No, I don't think so. Oh,
Limpopo
forget the
had
name of
basically
it.
become a ghost town.
Mushoku Tensei, Roxy's Town.
Nobody went
Gives me
out
that
unless
vibe.
they absolutely had to, because over the last 10 days, over 20 people in this area had been brutally mauled. The victims had all insisted that the creature that had mauled them was some kind of four-legged demon, and they had begun calling it the Beast. Now, Fraser considered himself a
Chupacabra.
pretty level-headed person who did not necessarily buy into the hype around
Chupacabra
this
of
beast. He
Limpopo.
figured it was very likely just a dog. But still, he didn't want to get attacked. And so as he walked down this vacant road, he periodically looked over his shoulder just to make sure no dog was following him. As Fraser continued to walk along, he looked up and saw the huge forest fire that was raging on a mountain miles
Forest
and miles
fire.
off in the distance. A few days ago, the fire had started, and from Fraser's perspective, it still seemed to be going strong. In fact, in the darkness, it almost looked like the mountain was glowing red. Just then, Fraser noticed the turnoff for the shortcut that would take him through some forest back to his home, and when he got there, he stopped and looked over his shoulder one more time to make sure he was still all alone, and he was, and then he stepped off the main road, into the woods, and into the darkness. Under the tree canopy, the night suddenly seemed a lot darker. Fraser did his best to think about the chores he needed to do for his mother once he got home, instead of thinking about the beast. But he'd only been on this path for about 300.
Oh, you definitely need to be worrying about what's in front of you at this exact moment. He's talking about, I gotta wash the dishes. I gotta take the dryer, take the clothes out the dryer. I gotta put this meat up in the sink to thaw out. No, you got better things to worry about, my brother.
300 feet when he suddenly heard a rustling from behind him. And so right away, Fraser stopped and turned around and looked where the noise was coming from. But all he saw was darkness. There was nothing there. And so Fraser, for a whole minute, just stood there staring out into the tree line, waiting for something to
Must
move.
have been the wind.
But nothing did. And so Fraser told himself he was just being paranoid. Everything was fine. And then he turned
I knew he was gonna. He did say it. Must have been the wind.
back around and kept on walking. But pretty quickly, his walk turned into a jog. And he was almost to the end of this path, almost out of the forest. He could see his village. It was right there.
Sprint. Talking about a jog. I'm put. It's gonna be the fastest I ever ran in my life.
When he heard noises behind him again. Except now, in addition to the rustling sounds, he heard a new sound. It was like a wheezing sound, like a sick animal that was breathing
nah.
heavily. Now,
I'm outta here.
Fraser knew he was not just being
Sprint time.
paranoid. Something was out there, and it seemed like it might
I gotta do the
follow him.
dash.
Without slowing down, Fraser
Gonna look
looked
like
over his
Tyreek
shoulder
Hill.
again to see what was out there, but again, he just saw nothing. It was just shadows. However, when he turned back around and kept on going towards his village, he heard this loud crashing sound behind him, like a massive animal had leapt out of the brush and landed on the path behind him. And so
Oh no! A Samoan dude jumped out the bushes.
Fraser was immediately so scared he couldn't even turn around. He just started sprinting toward the village, and all he could hear behind him were these loud, pounding footsteps as whatever this was gaining on him. And so Fraser was so instantly terrified that instinctively he just started sprinting off without even looking behind him. And so as he's running, this thing's gaining on him, and again he can hear this awful wheezing sound coming from whatever this is, as if there was something wrong with its lungs. And in Fraser's panic, as he's sprinting through the forest, Fraser's telling himself it's just gotta be a rabid dog. That's why it's making those sounds. But he
Rabbit dog. No. You hearing them stomps behind you? That thing about 450. Probably even heavier than that.
knew that didn't track. This thing is huge.
Talking about pounds.
This can't just be a rabid dog. And so Fraser just kept on running and running.
Probably heavier than an elephant running behind you. Boom, boom.
And finally, he got out of the trees, back into his village, and at the exact same moment, the pounding footsteps behind him came to a stop. But again, Fraser, he didn't turn around. He's too scared. He just ran for his door. His house was right there in front of him.
Good.
And he gets to his door. He's about
This is exactly what you're supposed to do in this situation. He should have been running a little earlier. He told the jogging. You could put a higher pace on the jog with light sprints. We getting up on out of here with the swiftness.
to open it up, and right as he does, he feels this searing pain in his neck. This creature, whatever it was, had leapt and grabbed onto him and bit down on the back of his neck. And so Fraser crumpled to the ground and threw his arms up over his head to protect himself, and with one eye he could see as this massive black creature on top of him, chewing on the lower half of his face.
Oh,
and so
no.
Fraser couldn't even feel any pain. He just began screaming for help, and he tried to push it out of him, but he couldn't. And a second later, a flash of metal came across his eye as his mother and other villagers who had seen this happening and heard him screaming came out and began smashing whatever this was with shovels. And so a second later, Fraser's pulled away and dragged towards his house, and this huge black creature, it marched over to the edge of the tree line and just stopped, turned, and looked back at Fraser and his mother and the neighbors. And Fraser, as he's sitting there in total shock, he can tell that whatever this thing is, this enormous dog-like creature, this had to be the beast. That's what just attacked him. And in this moment, Fraser realized, this creature may have the shape of a dog, but it was not a dog. South Africa has its share of wild dogs, jackals, and hyenas, and typically they're multicolored and fairly small. And this thing was jet black, pitch black, and gigantic. And when
a dire wolf?
When this thing first started chasing Fraser, he'd had that panicked thought that maybe it was a rabid dog. But rabid animals are typically lethargic and confused. And this thing that was 15 feet away from them was absolutely alert and calm. The only thing sick about it was that horrible wheezing sound it would make as it breathed. And as Fraser and his mother and the neighbors just stood there staring at this thing, this creature just continued to stare back at them with piercing eyes. And its eyes were not normal. These were not like animal eyes or dog eyes. They were too small and set at the wrong angle. And there was...
The eyes were at the wrong angle. It got lazy eye?
Real sentience behind them. They were human eyes. Just then, Fraser's mother grabbed Fraser and yanked him, kind of jerking him back to reality, and he scrambled to his feet, and he and his mother and the two neighbors, they took off running back into their respective homes. All the while, this creature just sat there on the edge of the forest, staring still in the direction of Fraser and his home. Once inside of Fraser's house, his mother immediately dialed the emergency number to tell the police about what had just happened, but the police told her they were not going to send people out there to deal with some dog. And so Fraser's mother decided,
buddy, do you know what just happened out here? We got chased up on out of the woods. They said the dog bit half my jaw off. I need the ambulance. I need the police out here right now.
Decided she would just treat her son's wounds on her own.
How's she gonna treat the wounds by herself? They said he bit onto the side of his jaw.
Until this dog-like creature had left, and then once it had, she would get him a ride to the hospital. However, as Fraser and his mother stared out the window at this creature, it didn't leave. It just sat there staring back at Fraser and his mother.
Oh no, this was his op. That was his op in the past life. I mean, he's sitting outside after he bit his jaw.
With these hideous human eyes for hours and hours. Finally, in the morning, it was gone. The attack on Fraser was the last straw for the people of his village. They believed the creature that had bit his face was the demon beast that had hurt so many other people. And so the elders of Fraser's village came up with a plan of how to deal with this beast.
Sitting in there like
and so a few days after the attack on Fraser, this group of elders went off on a journey up into that mountain that Fraser had seen off in the distance that had that huge forest fire on it. And they were there for 2 whole days before returning to the village and telling everyone that they had successfully performed a ritual that had appeased their ancestors, and so hopefully now the attacks would stop.
They did a ritual that appeased their ancestors.
And sure enough, they did. They did not see the beast again.
What?
At least 40 people in Limpopo had encountered the beast at some point, either because they were attacked or they helped fend it off, like the neighbors did with Fraser. But because this beast was never caught, and it did stop attacking the village and just kind of disappeared,
They forgot
nobody
about
ever
it.
actually figured out what it was. To this day, people in Fraser's village maintain that this creature was a demon and that it came down from the burning mountain, because every person, including Fraser, who had encountered this beast, noted its wheezing, heavy breathing, as if its lungs had been damaged by smoke. In all, at least 40 people in Limpopo encountered this beast, either because they were attacked or they helped fend it off. But because it was
Did I not already hear him say that?
never caught, there is no definitive proof of what it actually was. As many of you may know, the biggest event to ever come out of Ballen Studios is fast approaching. Starting September 26th to October 20th,
Hey, W video. Let me see what this event is real quick. But W video, I think I'm gonna put Mr.Ballen into the rotation here.
I will be on tour. I'll be visiting 15
He's going on tour.
different cities across the country, delivering the strange, dark, and mysterious to you all, live and in person. We did one sold-out show last year in Austin.
All right. I guess I'll have to. I don't know if I'll be able to go to one in person, but if I can see the footage of it like these, I might have to watch some footage of it. The previous one maybe. I don't know.
In Texas at the Paramount Theater. It was sort of like to see if people liked it, and it seemed like people loved it, so we decided to take that format and run with it. On this year's tour, just like in Austin, Texas last year, there will be some OG classic
All right, man. W
Mr.
video.
Ballen stories.
The link will be in the description if you want to check it out. For his video, if you want to check out what he's talking about, links in the description. If you're watching this far, though, you might as well subscribe to my channel. No cap. Please drop a like if you want to. I'm streaming these live, TwiiChy with 3 Ys on Twitch. Yeah.